You're sitting across from someone you care about. They're talking, explaining something about their day, maybe even laughing, but while they speak, you feel something deeper moving underneath their words. A small tension in their voice, a hesitation in their eyes, something unspoken. And suddenly you realize you've been sensing this kind of thing your entire life. You feel what people are not saying just as clearly as what they are. Most people in that moment would simply listen to the conversation. But you notice the emotion behind it. If that sounds familiar, there is a good chance you are a highly aware empath. And the truth is, many women who carry this level of emotional intelligence go through life feeling different without fully understanding why. They wonder why relationships sometimes feel exhausting. They wonder why they can read a room instantly while others seem completely unaware. Later in this video, I'm going to show you why this ability can actually make you more powerful in relationships rather than more vulnerable. And I'm also going to explain the surprising moment when many highly aware empaths stop chasing connection altogether, and suddenly their entire social dynamic begins to change. We'll come back to that soon. For now, let's talk about the first thing that makes highly aware empaths different. You notice emotional patterns faster than most people. When someone says one thing but feels another, you sense the gap. When someone smiles but carries tension inside, you feel it. This ability can make you incredibly compassionate because you understand pain people try to hide. But it can also make relationships complicated because once you see those patterns, you often try to help. You ask questions. You offer understanding. You give people emotional space to open up. In many ways, you become the safe place others come to when they need support. At first, this feels natural. But over time, something subtle can begin to happen. The more emotional energy you give, the more people begin to rely on it. And if the relationship is not balanced, you slowly become the one carrying most of the emotional weight. You check in first. You ask how they're doing. You try to repair misunderstandings. You try to keep the connection strong. And eventually you start to feel tired, not because you don't care, because the effort is no longer equal. This is where a powerful shift begins for highly aware empaths. At some point you realize that explaining your feelings again and again is not always the solution. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is step back and observe. That step back often looks like silence, and silence feels incredibly uncomfortable at first. Your mind starts questioning everything. Should I text them? Should I clarify what I meant? Maybe they misunderstood me. Your instinct as an empath is to repair the connection quickly. But here's the deeper truth that many emotionally intelligent people eventually learn. Silence protects your energy. Remember that line. Silence protects your energy. When you stop chasing conversations that feel one-sided, something important begins to happen. The relationship no longer runs on your effort alone. The emotional space becomes still, and that stillness reveals the true balance of the connection. Some people notice the quiet and move closer. They ask what's going on. They show curiosity. They begin to participate more equally. Others remain exactly where they were. And that reaction tells you something valuable. One of the hardest lessons for empaths to learn is that chasing rarely creates respect. In fact, chasing often lowers your emotional position in the relationship. When you constantly explain, adjust, and pursue clarity, the other person unconsciously begins to expect it. Your effort becomes the norm instead of something appreciated. But when you step back, the dynamic changes. The space you create invites the other person to step forward if they truly value the connection. And if they don't step forward, that silence also delivers an important answer. Silence protects your energy. This is one of the quiet strengths of highly aware empaths. Eventually, you stop forcing emotional closeness where it does not naturally exist. Instead, you begin observing who actually meets you halfway, and that realization leads to something powerful. Because in the next part of this conversation, we're going to explore the psychology behind what happens in people's minds when you stop chasing connection, and why highly aware empaths often end up with smaller circles but much deeper relationships. When you step back from someone and stop reaching out, something subtle begins to change in the emotional space between you. At first, it may seem like nothing is happening. The world keeps moving. People continue with their routines. Your phone stays quiet. But psychologically, the dynamic has already shifted. For a long time, your effort created a rhythm in the relationship. You were the one checking in, asking questions, opening conversations, keeping the emotional door open. That effort became familiar, predictable. And when something becomes predictable, the human mind often stops noticing it. Not because people are intentionally ungrateful, but because certainty requires very little attention. The moment you step back, that certainty disappears. The message they were used to seeing from you is no longer there. The emotional support they quietly relied on becomes less available. Suddenly, The relationship no longer runs on automatic energy, and the mind begins to notice the difference. Curiosity appears, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. People start wondering what changed. They may look at their phone expecting to see your name. They may think about you during moments when they previously relied on your presence. This is one of the powerful psychological effects of stepping back. You interrupt the pattern. Silence protects your energy. When you allow that silence to exist without rushing to fill it, you stop feeding the imbalance that once existed in the relationship. Now the connection has space to show its true nature. If the other person values you, they begin to move closer. They ask questions. They make effort. If they do not move closer, that also tells you something important. But knowing this intellectually does not always make the process easy, because the emotional habit of reaching out can feel incredibly strong. You might pick up your phone without even realizing it. Your mind quickly creates reasons to send a message. Maybe you just want to check in. Maybe you want to clarify something small. Maybe you just want to remove the awkward silence. This urge is completely natural. For a long time, sending that message gave you a sense of control over the connection. It helped reduce the uncertainty you were feeling. But when you are learning to step back, the goal is not to eliminate the urge. The goal is to pause before acting on it. One simple practice helps more than people expect. Delay the message. When the urge to text or call appears, give yourself 20 minutes before doing anything. Put your phone down. Walk away from it for a moment. Let the emotional wave pass through your body instead of reacting immediately. Most impulses lose their strength when they are given space. Another powerful step is writing the message without sending it. Open a note on your phone or a journal and write exactly what you want to say. Let the thoughts come out honestly. Often you will notice something interesting happen. Once the emotion is expressed, the pressure to send the message begins to fade. You realize the urge was more about releasing your feelings than actually contacting the person. Silence protects your energy. Every time you choose to pause instead of chase, you strengthen your emotional stability. You begin proving to yourself that your peace does not depend on someone else's response. And this is where your focus begins to shift in a healthy direction. Highly aware empaths often spend an enormous amount of emotional energy managing relationships. You think deeply about how others feel. You try to understand their perspective. You try to maintain harmony. Over time, that outward focus can quietly drain your inner resources. Stepping back changes that. The time and emotional energy you once spent chasing connection becomes available again. And when you redirect that energy toward your own life, something powerful begins to happen. You reconnect with yourself. You invest in routines that strengthen your mind and body. You spend time in environments that calm your nervous system. You move your body, take walks, read books that expand your thinking, or pursue interests that make you feel alive again. Instead of checking your phone to see who responded, you start checking in with your own life. Silence protects your energy. The more you practice this shift, the more stable your sense of identity becomes. You stop measuring your value by who is texting you back. You stop feeling responsible for maintaining every connection around you. Your energy becomes calmer, more grounded, more selective. And interestingly, this is the stage where many people begin noticing you again. When you stop chasing attention, your presence starts to feel different, more centered, less reactive. But the most important transformation is not happening in their mind. It is happening in yours. Because in the next part of this conversation, we are going to explore what happens when the silence finally reveals the truth. Whether someone returns to the connection with genuine effort, or whether the quiet space becomes the moment you realize the relationship had already reached its end. Eventually the silence answers you. It may happen sooner than you expected, or it may take longer than you hoped. But when you step back and allow space to exist, the relationship cannot remain in uncertainty forever. Something will reveal itself. Sometimes the person comes back. You might see their name appear on your phone. A message arrives asking how you've been. Maybe they act curious about the distance. Maybe they suddenly show more attention than before. When that happens, it can stir many emotions at once. Part of you may feel relieved, another part may feel cautious, and another part might feel the temptation to return to the connection exactly as it was. But this is the moment where your awareness matters most. Because if someone comes back, the goal is not to return to the old dynamic that drained you. The goal is to see whether something has actually changed. And that begins with pace. You slow things down. You don't rush to explain everything you felt during the silence. You don't immediately restore constant communication. Instead, you allow the relationship to move forward gradually. This slower pace gives you something very valuable. Time to observe. Watch their actions carefully. Words can be easy, especially when someone senses they might lose your attention. But real connection reveals itself through consistent behavior. Do they show effort repeatedly? Do they ask about your life with genuine interest? Do they show the same level of care you once gave so freely? This is where boundaries become important. Boundaries are not punishments. They are quiet standards that protect your emotional health. They show people that access to your time and energy requires mutual respect. If someone truly values your presence, they will naturally adjust to those standards. Silence protects your energy. Let that line guide you here. You no longer need to overextend yourself to keep a connection alive. You simply show up with honesty and calm presence, and you watch whether the other person meets you with the same effort. If they do, the relationship can slowly grow in a healthier direction. But there is another possibility. Sometimes the silence continues, no message arrives, no effort appears. Days stretch into weeks, and the connection quietly fades into the background of your life. At first, this can feel painful. The mind naturally searches for explanations. You may replay conversations in your head, wondering whether something could have been said differently. You may feel the urge to break the silence just to gain clarity. But this is where a deeper truth appears. Silence reveals truth either way. When someone values your presence, distance usually creates curiosity. They notice the absence and feel motivated to reconnect. When someone does not reach out, their silence also carries a message. Not a message of blame or rejection, but a message of clarity about the level of investment they had in the relationship. And accepting that truth requires dignity. Closure does not always come through a final conversation. Sometimes closure comes through observation. When someone consistently chooses distance, their behavior tells you everything you need to know. Silence protects your energy. By stepping back, you allow the relationship to reveal itself without forcing an outcome. That clarity is a gift, even if it arrives with a little sadness, because once you accept the truth, something powerful happens. Your energy returns to you. Instead of waiting for a response that may never come, you begin investing your attention in the parts of life that actually nourish you. Your friendships becomes more valuable. Your emotional energy flows toward people and activities that respect it. And slowly, your world becomes calmer. Let's bring everything together. Highly aware empaths often struggle in relationships because they give deeply and sense emotional patterns quickly. This can lead to chasing connection when something feels off, but chasing rarely creates balance. Stepping back interrupts that pattern. It creates space for the truth of the relationship to appear. If someone comes back, you move forward with patience, boundaries, and clear standards. You allow their actions to demonstrate whether they truly value the connection. If they do not come back, you accept the message with dignity and continue building a life that no longer depends on their response. Silence reveals truth either way, and when you understand that, you stop fearing quiet moments in relationships, you begin trusting them. Silence protects your energy. Here is one simple action you can practice starting today. The next time you feel the urge to chase someone who has become distant, pause for 24 hours before reaching out. During that time, focus on something that strengthens your own life. Go outside for a walk. Write your thoughts down. Spend time with people who show up for you without hesitation. That pause gives you clarity. It allows emotion to settle and wisdom to rise. Because the strongest version of you is not the one who constantly explains, chases, or tries to fix every connection. The strongest version of you is the one who stands calmly in her own value and allows people to meet her there. Carry that quiet confidence with you. Protect your peace. Let your presence be something that is respected, not something that must fight for attention. And if you want to understand the subtle early signs that reveal when someone is about to take your empathy for granted, watch the next video where we explore the behaviors most people overlook until it's too late.